Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 867 for the 18th of May, 2025. Richard Saunders coming to you from overcast and slightly wet and raining Sydney, Australia. Yesterday was a nice day. It was. And I was able to go for a nice long walk. And what did I listen to? I listen to skeptical podcasts on my walk. It's good to listen to other skeptical podcasts to find out what they're saying, what they're doing. And in one sense, you could say, well, I'm checking in on the competition, but I've never held the view that other skeptical podcasts are competition. We're all on the same team, I think. And speaking of other skeptical podcasts, I'm delighted to say that next month I'm a guest host for my friend Brian Dunning on the Skeptoid episode. Keep an ear out for that. And for all you people like me, occasionally who suffer from insomnia, try listening to this show. Maybe it'll send you to sleep. Well, my parts anyway. But the parts of the show that should keep you awake this week, We Can Reason. Remember, last week we had Adrienne Hill reporting from the We Can Reason conference in Calgary, Canada. This week we have more interviews from Kat McLeod. And it just gives you a flavour, I think, of what a wonderful conference that is. People really had a good time, not only with the talks, but the social aspects too. Kat catches up with Seth Andrews, who has some, very nice things to say about yours truly. Leslie Rosenblood. Forrest Valkai, who I met in Las Vegas, who also has some nice things to say. Brenda Hill. Hello, Brenda. A long-time listener in Canada, from Jasper in Canada. Brenda's been listening to this show even before I was doing it. That's how long she's been listening to the show. And then Adrienne Hill comes in and interviews Rodney Schmaltz and Lee Pinter. But again, just bear in mind how much enjoyment people get out of these sort of meetings. It sounds like a great time, and I'm sorry I was not there. After that, it's part 4 of the life story of Alfred Russel Wallace in the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham. And more about Tim Mendham in a moment. Then we have more horoscopes with our very own Psychic Penny. And I'm pleased to say the Skeptic Zone has an exclusive deal with Psychic Penny. Then to round off the show, in the Trove segment, I have found information, which I found very interesting indeed, about a certain psychic who was making quite a name for herself many years ago in the 70s and the 80s and things like that. Dorothy Allison, who gained a reputation of being a psychic detective, solving crimes for police. And so interesting is her story, especially when she crossed swords with James Randi, that it's a two-parter. So we got part 1 of various news reports about the so-called psychic detective Dorothy Allison. And next week, part 2, and even more of her interactions, or should I say the reactions and the comments from James Randi. Now, my good friend Dr. Carl Kruszelnicki has sent me a note. Thank you, Carl. Always good to hear from you. And he wants you to know that next Tuesday, May the 27th, and what a pity I can't make that myself. Personally, I'll be on a train. More about that in a moment. Dr. Carl has an event, Artificial Intelligence or Artificial Idiocy. And this is at the Seymour Centre. And Sydney-siders will know the Seymour Centre. It's just opposite the Broadway Shopping Centre, then up the road, up City Road a little bit. But it's a very famous venue, not far from Sydney University. In fact, that's where James Randi spoke in 1980, indeed. And I'll link to this event in this week's show notes. And it looks like a cracker. I mean, every time Dr. Carl speaks anywhere in public, it's a great it's a great opportunity. It's a great experience. So again, that's Dr. Cole speaking about artificial intelligence, and that will be the 27th of May, which is a Tuesday, from 6 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. at the Seymour Centre. Now, the reason I won't be there, and Tim Mendham won't be there, is that by then we'll be in Armidale, in the New England area. We're travelling up in the morning on a train. We're going on a long train ride, chugging up the coast, inland to Armidale. And then on the 28th of this month, I'll be giving a talk for the local skeptics in the pub. If you're in the New England area, the Armidale area, come along. It would be great to see you. I'm giving my talk, The Secrets of the Psychics, and Tim Mendham will be on hand to answer questions too. And yes, there'll be water divining and spoon bending. But now it's time for me to run downstairs and have some potatoes. I've learnt a new way to make potatoes. If you have one of those kitchen graters, and one of the sides, I've got one which is like a box, like a box shape, and one of the sides has a single blade, and you can put a potato in there and twist it, and it turns into a curly potato. Put that in the microwave, and it turns into a long curly potato chip. Yeah, why not? While I try that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
For crying out loud, it's Kat McLeod. This is Kat McLeod at the Week in Reason conference in Calgary, Alberta, with Mr. Seth Andrews, the keynote speaker. Hi, Seth. How you doing?
You know, I was sitting here thinking about all the times I had read scripture in my religious youth, and, you know, many people don't know that after the 6-day creation, then God rested. On the 8th day, God created Richard Saunders. He had to save up his mojo. Like, there's so much goodness in Richard that you literally have to rest up before it is created. And then Richard, who goes out and performs amazing feats, he's able to just master the folding of the paper. And this is dangerous work because paper cuts, very difficult. People have died in world wars from paper cuts. You have to be very, very careful. He has been able to do so injury-free. I think that's remarkable.
He can bend spoons as well.
He can bend spoons. And I think, I won't call him a god. Perhaps he's a sub-deity who maybe God just sort of imbued him with a little extra because he had time on day number 8. And I'm thankful for that. And in all seriousness, Richard, you are one of the best of us. You are a great skeptic. You have such good humor. You are loaded with kindness and goodwill. People love you everywhere you go. I'm grieved I didn't get a chance to meet you again at the Weekend Reason 2025 event, but just know you have a fan who is watching you from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I look forward to the chance to shake your hand and thank you again in person someday soon.
Awesome, Seth. Thank you very kindly. I'm here at Week in Reason in Calgary with Leslie Rosenblood from CFI Canada. Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It was a wonderful conference here, my first Weekend Reason conference, but I'm hoping it won't be my last.
That's wonderful. It's been an amazing day, so many good speakers. Have you had a lot of inquiries about CFI Canada today?
Yeah, there's lots of people that were kind of surprised that CFIC still exists because CFIC used to have a chapter here in Calgary, but it fizzled out. We had to do a lot of rebuilding internally to rebuild it. We're now a much stronger organization. We've got the Podcast for Inquiry, a lot of national programs, and just rebuilding those relationships here has been wonderful.
That's wonderful. Do you have any special message that you'd like to give to the Skeptic Zone listeners?
Well, you obviously are interested in skeptical podcasts, so if you are interested in the genuine spirit of inquiry, check out Podcast for Inquiry. You'll get to hear this voice some of the time, but more importantly, the voices of people talking intelligently and with nuance on complex subjects. So Podcast for Inquiry, new episodes every 2 weeks.
Thank you so much, Leslie. It's wonderful touching base with you again. I appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure, Kat.
I'm Kat McLeod here with Brenda Hill. Brenda, how have you enjoyed today's conference?
Enormously. Thank you, Kat. It was a fantastic day, and it's not over yet. And I just was reminiscing about past conferences and just thinking, well, this one was maybe the best. And so, yeah, it's the people, it's the touching base with, and the people who've been my heroes for really 17 years. And I figured out, too, that when I discovered The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, Forrest Valkai was 17 years old.
Oh, my!
So there's hope for the future. There really is.
I believe there's hope, and I believe Forrest is part of that.
Oh, he is. Do you know what also struck me, and not just here, but at every skeptic conference I've been to, you'd have to work very hard to not fit in. You come as you are, and you're probably very interesting. And I've noticed over the years more age diversity, which you can understand. I mean, most of us, you have to get pretty old before you can afford it. But yeah, that I'm impressed with. And just, yeah, it's been a great time.
For crying out loud, it's Kat McLeod. And what was that you were saying, Brenda?
I was saying I've had a great time, but the only thing missing is Richard Saunders, and I hope we see him soon in the land of the loon.
Oh!
I heard a loon the other day as I was on my way to Canadian Tire. And while at Canadian Tire, waiting for my ride home, I scrolled through old photos, and I found from the lobby of the Horseshoe Hotel, I'll have to put it on Facebook. It was on the TV, and it was an old-timey kind of a Western show, and there was a man dowsing. And I stopped, and I'm sure I'm the only one in the casino who was actually filming the TV. And so anyway, that was my 3 Richard Saunders things in one day.
Well, that's wonderful. Just the other day, I was at the dog park, and I saw loons in the pond. I took pictures for Richard because he does love these loons from Canada, or so the rumor has it.
That's what he said.
So, hi, Forrest.
Hi.
You had an amazing talk today.
Oh.
Are you enjoying the conference?
So far, so great. It's been weird. Everyone's been very nice. This place.
Sorry.
No, it's fantastic. I went outside today and I didn't feel like I might be shot, and that was a very unique experience. It was wild.
Don't make me cry.
As an American, not fearing for your life is a genuine pleasure. It's a unique and rare experience that I feel like the rest of the world takes for granted. You know what I mean?
As a Canadian, I definitely take that for granted every single day. I don't fear for my life ever.
Oh, you should come to Oklahoma. It's a bad place.
I've been to America, and it does scare me, especially now.
Yeah, I love anytime I have international friends visit, I love to teach them about a couple of things about America. I love teaching them about Waffle House. Anybody who can come and experience a Waffle House, that's a great time.
Now, do you use real Canadian maple syrup?
No, we use when they grind the bodies into sausage links behind the Waffle House, some of those fluids also become the syrup. That's because Americans, we love sugary treats, and our blood is so sweet you can't tell the difference.
Right?
Yeah, it's a bad place. If you like bad places, it's a great place to go.
You're really selling all of the Skeptic Zone listeners on going to Oklahoma.
You know what?
Do you work for the tourism industry?
I think the Skeptic Zone listeners, if they are already fans of the dulcet tones of the charming and devilishly handsome Richard Saunders, I think that they would appreciate the adventure that is Oklahoma. You can meet some really good turtles there. You can have some of the best food you've ever had in your life. You will meet some incredibly friendly people, any one of which would stab you over a chicken sandwich. And it is a genuinely lovely, adventuresome place to go, full of ragweed and potholes and low-income housing, and not the cool kind either. It's a bad place, but you should check it out. It's a lot of fun. Genuinely.
Do you have any other words of wisdom for the Skeptic Zone listeners?
I forgot we were recording.
I can cut a lot of this in post if you want.
No, it's fine. I'm delirious. My life is in shambles, and I live like a slob, and I don't know where I am most of the time.
But you've never had a bad day.
Never once. Never once. Richard, if you're listening, I love you, and thank you everybody for tuning into the Skeptic Zone. Stay cool and stay skeptic-y and never stop learning.
This is Adrienne Hill, and I'm sitting here right now in a restaurant in Calgary after the We Can Reason conference, and I'm sitting next to Rodney Schmaltz, who has been on the show before, and he was one of the speakers. And can you tell everybody what you talked about?
I was talking about adventures in teaching pseudoscience today. So I discussed what we do in my class with regards to doing things like ghost hunts, which Adrienne and Kat have been part of and which has been on the Skeptic Zone. I talk about some strategies to debunk psychics, and I talk a little bit about the work we've done with the Center for Inquiry Investigations Group and the Paranormal Challenge. So my class designs the protocols for applicants to the Paranormal Challenge.
Yes, excellent. It was an excellent talk. It was well received. It was a wonderful day. Did you enjoy the day?
It was a fantastic day. This is my first time here, and I thought it was great. Really good conference. The MC was outstanding.
Thank you. And who was the MC?
I believe it was Adrienne Hill. I have to check the program, but I think that's who it was.
Yeah, it could be Allie, yes. And she's also related to Psychic Penny.
And good friends with the skeptical fairy godmother of the...
That's right. And also with me, I have Lee Pinter. Can you tell us where you're from and why you're here?
Sure. I'm from the Little Rock area of Arkansas, so a few states away from Calgary, right? First trip to Calgary, but wanted to come and visit the conference.
Affiliate, yes. And you also are friends and work with Susan Gerbic, and you're a Wikipedia editor, and you're also on the board, correct?
You've got all that correct. Yep, she keeps me busy.
So have you enjoyed your time here so far?
So much. I love this size of conference, about 100 people, and it's perfect size for meeting new people. Can't tell you how much, I endorse it.
And did you get to meet many of the speakers?
All of them. I've gotten to chat with each of them. The Friday night event, at lunch. I mean, you have a lot of face time with all the speakers. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you have this size, it just gives you more access to the people that are coming. And I think everybody had a chance to talk to all the speakers at some point. Everyone agree?
Yes.
Well, this is Adrienne Hill signing off because my dessert's coming.
This is Kat McLeod from We Can Reason Conference in Calgary.
This is Kyle from the Data Skeptic podcast. If you're curious about the way data is changing our world, topics like AI and all this craziness with Facebook and bots and the Twitter storm and how the algorithms that underline that work, and you don't want a technical deep dive, you want it in the vernacular in a way that people can understand, check us out at Data Skeptic. That's what we try and do. I interview advanced professionals in the field who do this sort of research, and then I get into interesting projects as well. We're a weekly show, and you can find us at dataskeptic.com.
And now, a reading from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham.
Hi, my name's Tim Mendham. I'm the editor of the Australian Skeptics journal, The Skeptic, and Executive Officer for Australian Skeptics Inc. And today is part 4 of a 5-part article on Alfred Russel Wallace. The class is one of the most famous scientists of his time, but whose reputation has been tarnished and diminished over the years. And one of those reasons is because he was belief in some very unscientific areas, so much so that people regarded there as being two Wallaces. And simultaneously he did this. And one of the areas we looked at was spiritualism and phrenology. And this time we're looking at another area, and he was an anti-vaxxer. So this area of controversy that Wallace became involved in was the anti-vaccination movement, although typically he approached it from a scientific statistical stance. The first Vaccination Act in England, passed in 1840, outlawed variolation, which was the practice of infecting a person with actual smallpox, and provided vaccination that used vaccines developed from cowpox free of charge. The subsequent 1853 Act made vaccination mandatory and included measures to punish parents or guardians who failed to comply. Changes in the law passed in 1867 permitted the authorities to enforce vaccination more efficiently. The law allowed the repeated prosecution of parents who failed to have their child vaccinated. The 1871 Act authorised the appointment of vaccination officers whose task it was to identify cases of non-compliance. Ooh, the anti-vaxxers would have been upset with that period, I tell you. Anyway, in the early 1880s, Wallace joined the debate over mandatory vaccination. He originally saw the issue as a matter of personal liberty, but after studying statistics provided by anti-vaccination activists, always reliable, he began to question the efficacy of vaccination itself. At the time, the germ theory of disease was new and far from universally accepted. Moreover, no one knew enough about the human immune system to understand why vaccination worked. Wallace discovered instances where supporters of vaccination had used questionable and in a few cases completely false statistics to support their arguments. Always suspicious of authority, he suspected that physicians had a vested interest in promoting vaccination. He became convinced that reductions in the incidence of smallpox that had been attributed to vaccination were due to better hygiene and improvements in public sanitation, and that the vaccination process itself was unsanitary. And nothing has changed in the last 150 years. Same arguments. In 1885, he distributed a pamphlet addressed to the members of Parliament and others in which he outlined his findings and conclusions, which are, having been led to inquire for myself as to the effects of vaccination in presenting or diminishing smallpox, I have arrived at results as unexpected as they appear to be conclusive. He said that he needed to make the truth known to all, and especially to those who, on the faith of false or misleading statements, have enforced the practice of vaccination by penal laws. His conclusion, written in the familiar all-caps style of the concerned and fanatical, was, quote, "We therefore solemnly urge upon you the immediate repeal of the iniquitous penal laws by which you have forced upon us a dangerous and useless operation, an operation which has admittedly caused many deaths, which is probably the cause of greater mortality than smallpox itself, but which cannot be proved to have ever saved a single human life." Another factor in Wallace's thinking was his belief that, because of the action of natural selection, organisms were in a state of balance with their environment, and that everything in nature served a useful purpose. Again, same argument being used these days. In 1889, in response to widespread public resistance, Parliament appointed a royal commission to draft recommendations to reform the vaccination system. In 1890, Wallace gave evidence to the commission. The Lancet averred that Wallace and other activists were being selective in their choice of statistics. In 1896, the commission published its conclusions, and while it found that smallpox vaccination was effective, it recommended some changes in procedures to improve safety, and that conscientious objection to vaccination should be considered. In 1898, Wallace wrote another pamphlet, Vaccination a Delusion, Its Penal Enforcement a Crime, attacking the Commission's findings. It, in turn, was again attacked by the Lancet, which stated that he repeated many of the same errors as his evidence given to the Commission. The exemption based on conscientious objection was passed into law that same year. So Wallace played a role in having vaccination taken from being mandatory to being optional. But despite all of Wallace's support for the supernatural and pseudoscientific, he was generally tolerated and even supported in his scientific work by his colleagues, who saw his promotion of alternative thinking an aberration of an otherwise great mind. Wallace had always stressed the need for scientific assessment of those areas that did not necessarily get approval from his colleagues, and he maintained that commitment throughout his life. For instance, in the late 1890s, he wrote a letter that was published in the British Phrenological Yearbook, 1896. I am still a firm believer in phrenology. It is ignored by modern physiologists, chiefly, I think, because it is thought too easy and simple, and was seized upon by popular lecturers who were often ignorant men. It is, however, a true science, founded in the only true way, step by step the results of observation of the connection between development and function. The modern method of studying the functions of the brain by laying it bare and exciting it by galvanic currents is so unnatural and unscientific as to lead necessarily to false conclusions. None are so prejudiced as men of science. For 50 years they denounced mesmerism as imposture. Now, under the name of hypnotism, they are at length, in France and elsewhere, finding that all is true. So soon as any man of sufficient eminence studies phrenology in the only way it can be properly studied, that will be found also to be true. But in 1869 came a publication that put his relationship with the scientific community, and Darwin in particular, to the test. So much so that Darwin wrote to him and said, I hope you have not murdered too completely your own and my child. And that's the end of part 4 of this 5-part article on Alfred Russel Wallace from the Skeptic magazine, July 2024, which is volume 44, number 2. And in the next and final section, we'll look at his legacy and this problem of murdering Darwin and Wallace's child.
I'm Mick West. In my podcast, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, I have extended conversations with people who have been involved in conspiracy culture. I do this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it's really interesting. These people have great stories about how they fell down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, what they did down there, and what it was that helped them out. Sometimes I also talk to people who investigate conspiracy theories, and they have equally fascinating stories from the other side. Secondly, I want to understand how best to prevent the spread of conspiracy theories and misinformation, which is an increasing problem in a time when alternative media is exploding. The best way to do this is to communicate effectively with the people involved, and the best way to do that is with a nice long chat. So check it out, Tales from the Rabbit Hole, tftrh.com.
It's time for Psychic Penny's Zodiac, a real horoscope.
Welcome, seeker of universal understanding, to the chambers of Psychic Penny. Through my contacts at the Galactic Federation, I am able to see beyond the universe. With my mystical insights, I am now the universe's #1 astrologer in North America. Cross my palm with maple syrup and prepare for your personalized horoscope reading. And this week, we look at the star signs of Leo, Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. Now, Leo, this is a good month for counting the days until the next month. If you count more than 31, you're doing something wrong. Since you gave up drinking, your lucky bodily organ is your liver. No detox needed this month. Virgo. Forget trying to remember all those things you forgot about the last time I read your horoscope. Now, to your lucky numbers. I I sense that the stars forecast that this month your lucky numbers are 747, 767, 787, and A380. That means the stars also see air travel in your future, but maybe not in a 737. Libra. Kissing a frog will not turn it into a prince, but I'm sure the frog won't care. But you might have a new best friend. You could try kissing a snake. I wonder what that would turn into. No, the stars recommend you stick to humans, and super glue is just the thing for that. Oh, Adrienne, be quiet back there. Stop giggling. Scorpio. To quote Nostradamus, quote, in the year 2000 plus 25, Psychic Penny will cast your horoscope and blood will flow in the blood bank, end quote. There you are. You see, Nostradamus is never wrong. Well, maybe sometimes, but not this time. And your lucky blood type is? Well, whatever your blood type is. How fortunate is that? Oh no. My psychic forces are fading, and my quantum crystal ball is growing dim while the trigonometric tarot cards are shuffled away. With that, I bid you farewell until our next cosmic giggle.
There are many psychics and channelers who claim they are in contact with the Galactic Federation, but we have uncovered the truth. The Adventures of Psychic Penny and the Galactic Federation, Series 1. A daring cosmic space adventure starring Richard Saunders, Kat McLeod, Lara Benham, Maynard, Kathy Reitmeyer, and Adrienne Hill as Psychic Penny. Search for The Adventures of Psychic Penny. Once again to go back to those archives, those digital archives from around the world of newspapers, carefully collected and kept and are searchable for our enjoyment, our research. And normally we go to TROVE, of course, the wonderful resource from the Australian government and the National Library of Australia. But this week we've gone a bit further afield to other digital archives, and I was perusing some newspapers over at the newspaper archives at Google. Now, mostly they have American newspapers, but that doesn't stop them having some Australian ones and some other international newspapers as well, but yet another interesting archive. And I was flipping through there, randomly searching for things, and I was looking around there, very interesting stuff indeed, and I came across a name I was not too familiar with. I think I've heard about this lady before. Her name was Dorothy Allison, and she was a famed psychic detective in the day. Although she died in 1999, it appears she crossed swords somewhat with James Randi over the years. So this week we're looking at various newspaper reports and so on concerning Dorothy Allison. Now, according to Wikipedia, Dorothy Allison, December 29, 1924 to December 1, 1999, was a self-proclaimed psychic detective from New Jersey, known for work on the Atlanta murders of 1979 to 1981, appearances on TV series, Unsolved Mysteries, and Secrets of the Unknown. Now, it says she was credited by some sources with assisting a number of police investigations over the years, including the 1967 to 1968 search for the missing boy, later found drowned. The 1974 kidnapping of Patty Hearst, that's a famous case, and the 1976 Son of Sam murders. In 1980, she went to Atlanta to assist police investigating the then ongoing series of murdered children, but police said she ultimately did no more than give them 42 possible names for the murderer, none of which proved helpful. Many others considered her a fraud. 2 police detectives in Paterson, New Jersey, accused her of offering them money to say that she had been helpful in the 1979 search for a missing boy, later found murdered. Allison denied the charge. She was a frequent target of the scientific skeptic James Randi, who cited her failure in the Atlanta case when naming her for one of his earliest Urey Awards, later called Pegasus Awards, in April 1981. And it's a very short wiki page. There's not much more here at all. And I wonder if it was a case with Dorothy Allison, like it is with so many other psychic detectives, that they simply boast about doing things. And that boasting is reported as fact. You know, I've helped the police with 26 murder investigations. And then in the press they say, and she helped the police with 26 murder investigations. I wonder. Well, let's have a look. Let's have a look to see what some newspapers, mostly, I think all from the United States in this instance, had to say. Now let's start with a report that's published on the 23rd of October 1980 in the Ledger, which comes to us from Lakeland, Florida, which probably means they've picked this story up from, yes, it says here, Associated Press. Okay. Psychic begins search for clues. Atlanta, Associated Press. A New Jersey housewife who claims clairvoyant powers began touring Atlanta Wednesday in the latest attempt to solve the slayings of 10 black children and the disappearance of 4 others in the past 15 months. Dorothy Allison, a 55-year-old Nutley, New Jersey woman who claims to be a psychic, was accompanied by investigators in her first full day on the case. Quote, she wanted to go out to several sites where the bodies were found and wanted to interview some of the people, end quote, said Parthenia Jefferson, a police spokeswoman. Meanwhile, the reward fund for information in the slayings reached $151,000 in cash and pledges, and police reported a new, unconfirmed report of a child abduction. Maren Lee, a spokeswoman for the Atlanta Police Bureau, said police received a report that 2 black men driving a large brown car abducted a black child about noon from a downtown intersection. But she said no one had reported a missing child and the police had not confirmed the report. It was the second time this week police had received such a call. A military policeman said Monday he saw 3 black men force a girl into a car in a vacant lot in southwest Atlanta. That report was never confirmed, and police received no report of a missing child. Although the reward topped $151,000, Mayor Jackson suggested that any money collected over $100,000 be used to benefit the families of the victims. Mrs. Allison, who has been credited by other police departments with helping solve 13 killings and finding more than 50 missing people, said at a news conference after her arrival Tuesday that she believes the person responsible for the child deaths is a black man from Atlanta metropolitan area, but she declined to elaborate. Quote, I see where he is. I follow him, end quote, she said. Quote, I won't give up until he's found. Nobody touches my little angels. and that's what they are, my little angels, and gets away with it, end quote. So this is an interesting thing here, and this has simply been reported by fact that other police departments have credited her with helping to solve 13 killings and to find more than 50 missing people. Well, I got to cry bunkum on that. It's undoubtedly just something she said during the press conference. I've solved 15 cases of, I've done all these things, and it's just reporters writing it down. They don't have time to check these things. That's what I would say. And now we go to the Ludington Daily News, dated Tuesday, August 19, 1997. Opinion, under the subtitle here, subheading of peregrinations, which is another word for a travel, an adventure, a journey of some kind or another. So what do psychics know anyway? Not much. And I don't see a byline, so apologies to the original author. I can't see who you are. As a sometimes college philosophy professor, I urge my students to keep an open mind and not allow themselves to be imprisoned by their own notions of common sense. But you have to draw the line somewhere, and I draw the line at psychics. I ceased to be amazed at the proliferation of psychic hotlines claiming to be able to give their clients a better understanding of themselves and of the future, despite the, quote, for entertainment purposes only, end quote, kicker attached in small print to their ads. I probably wouldn't pay it much mind, except that I see this kind of magical thinking slipping into common usage among some of the students I teach. Little wonder, considering the seriousness by which such matters are approached by TV shows like The X-Files and Millennium, and recent movies like Phenomenon. The philosophy and religion sections of major bookstores anymore are given over to New Age authors who are taken seriously by people who don't know any better. Thus we have books on the Bermuda Triangle, poltergeists, dowsing, biorhythms, levitation, psychokinesis, astrology, ghost, psychic detective, UFOs, remote viewing, graphology, clairvoyance, pyramid power, healing by crystals, and even astrological birth control. Good luck trying to find an honest-to-God philosopher. So imagine my surprise when a very reputable police agency like the New York City Police Department keeps a psychic on retainer. Well, not quite a retainer. She accepts no money, but she has been called upon regularly by city police to help in difficult or dead-end cases. The psychic crime buster is 72-year-old New Jersey woman named Dorothy Allison. She says she has worked on more than 5,000 cases from all around the country. Worked on. I'll just stop here and have a think about that. She says she has worked on more than 5,000 cases, which probably means she looked at them, read about them, scribbled something about them, forgot about them. Wow. We read on. Why would professionally trained police agencies call on her? The best arguments seem to be those times when distraught families ask police to use a psychic, to which police say, quote, "What's the harm?" end quote. And I'll stop here briefly to say there's a famous case here in Australia where the family of a missing woman, presumed murdered, approached the psychic, and the psychic ended up wasting police time. We read on. Also, some suspects come from either religious backgrounds that believe in psychic powers, so to tell them a psychic is on the case will sometimes rattle them. But then there is always the downside. James Randi, a professional magician known as the Amazing Randi, has made a living debunking the claims of such psychics. He relates the view of one Midwest police chief that Mrs. Allison couldn't find a bowling ball in a bathtub if it were on fire. That she is taken seriously at all is a dangerous trend, according to Randi. Some time back, she was asked to help find the body of a New York City transit officer's wife. A standard technique of hers is to develop astrological charts based on the birth dates of everyone involved in the case. She also is privy to crime scene photographs as a prod to her psychic sensitivities. Working on the case of a transit officer's wife, she wrote down a number of bits of information. Any street named after water, any royal name, Alfred. There was some type of explosion in the area. A couple of weeks ago, accompanied by NYC police and FBI agents, Mrs. Allison was driven near the East River in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. There, for 2 days, dozens of investigators dug up a lot based on Mrs. Allison's psychic determinations. All they found were the bones of 2 dogs. Was Mrs. Allison unfazed? Not on your life. According to her, she was quite successful. The lot faces an avenue with the royal name of Kent. That's drawing a long bow. And from its banks can be seen the World Trade Center, where there was an explosion in 1993. Plus, she says, killers often kill a dog before they kill a person. Go figure. To begin with, you do realize how many lots there are along Kent Avenue. Second, there are many places in New York City where one cannot see the World Trade Center. As for the dogs, it was established that they met with foul play. But even if they had, what's the connection with the transit officer's wife? Joe Nickell. The late Joe Nickell. What a fine investigator Joe Nickell was. Joe Nickell, a researcher with the Scientific Investigations of Claims of the Paranormal, used to be called Psychop. Those were the days. A great name, Psychop. Gets infuriated by people like Mrs. Allison. Quote, she is a classic retrofitter, end quote, he claims, adding that she and other psychics throw out a lot of vague information and then declare triumph when any tidbit seems to match the evidence in hand. Kind of like what Howard Cosell used to do on Monday Night Football. And I guess my listeners in the United States would know more about that than I do. What bothers Nickell even more is the seeming gullibility of police agencies. He noted a plaque Mrs. Allison received from the Newark Police Department which said, "In appreciation for using extraordinary psychic ability to assist the Newark police in an ongoing investigation." That investigation of 5 missing boys in 1978 is still unresolved. Didn't bother to mention that on the plaque. Here's the upshot. Police detectives say that she has not solved a single case. Not one. Zip. Nada. But she still gets called upon. Like in the case of the recent disappearance of a Fordham student, Mrs. Allison was driven around Manhattan's Upper East Side and she spouted images. White's Restaurant, twins, a violent attack, a laundromat. Driving by the East River, she said, quote, "He's in the river," end quote. He was found 2 months later. Apparently he had fallen into the river and drowned. There is no White's Restaurant, but there was a restaurant that had been painted white. Are you impressed? No twins, unless you account the ubiquitous twin towers of the World Trade Center. No violent attack. There was a laundromat, but there is a laundromat most everywhere in the city. As one cop said, "She did predict he was in the river, but that was one of my guesses too." One would think education would rid us of muddle-headed thinking as that represented by a belief in psychic powers. But as a friend of mine has said, if you educate an idiot, you get an educated idiot. And that again comes from the Ludington Daily News on the 19th of August 1997. And finally we turn to the pages of the Bangor Daily News dated the 3rd of December 1999. Dorothy Allison, psychic who worked with police. Newark, New Jersey. Dorothy Allison, a renowned police psychic who helped locate the hideouts of Patty Hearst's kidnappers. Oh, really? Oh, really? And later gave an accurate description of Son of Sam killer David Berkowitz, died December 1 of heart failure. She was 74. Allison located 2 hideouts where the Hearst kidnappers stayed in 1974 and correctly predicted that Hearst would rob a bank with her kidnappers. Oh, really? She also correctly said Berkowitz would be captured with a traffic ticket. Oh, really? In 1980, she went to Atlanta to consult on the mass killings of children. She guaranteed the killer wouldn't hurt any more children, bared her throat to TV cameras, and dared the killer to strangle her. Allison never took money for the more than 5,000 cases she worked on, although she was paid to make appearances on some TV shows. A classic case of simply not having the time or need to do proper research. It's a little obituary, that's all. So the information comes off the line, retyped or typed or pasted in, and all those outrageous claims are published as if they were fact. Now, some years ago, I was delighted to give a talk for the New South Wales Police Force and some members of the Australian Federal Police, and I talked about psychic detectives, so-called psychic detectives, and how they basically waste the time of police. Could I then now boast that I have helped police with their murder investigations? I wonder. Or maybe if I just write some anonymous letter to the police saying, I have a feeling that the next murder victim will be found in a lake. I wait until this happens and I can boast that I sent the police the location of a murder victim. And this is not too far removed from what really happens. There's a case here in Australia of a psychic who simply wrote visions down on paper, posted them to the police, and then had no clue whether the police got the letter, if they did get the letter, if they did anything about it. And then she said, I have helped the police with their investigations. But it's one of those enduring myths that will probably never go away. People in society still think that there are such things as psychics, let alone psychics who help police solve crimes. Well, that was an interesting little look into some of the reports regarding Dorothy Allison, and I found more. In fact, I found a very large article concerning just her and James Randi, it would appear, published in 1982. And that might have to wait for another day because that's quite lengthy. But you know what? That is such an interesting looking article. I might hold that over until even next week. So why don't we do that? So tune in to the Trove segment for next week and we can learn more about James Randi and his scrutiny of alleged so-called self-proclaimed psychic detective Dorothy Allison. And again, I came across all this information by accident. I don't know if by accident is the right word. I stumbled across it, I guess, which goes to show that when you go to Trove and other online resources for newspapers, you never know what you might find. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast, and thank you to all those wonderful people who continue to support the Skeptic Zone at PayPal or Patreon, and those people who contribute in other ways. Some people wish not to use those systems, so they do contribute in other ways. It's all very gratefully appreciated. But if you wish to contribute using those systems, you can do that at skepticzone.tv. Now here's an unusual one. Recently I've been restoring old videos or experimenting with restoring old videos of vital importance or historical importance to the skeptical movement. The classic being a TV show, James Randi in Australia. I've spoken about this many times, broadcast in 1980 and 1981. In fact, it was on repeat. And the only copy known to exist was on a videotape that was recorded off a TV transmission in 1980. The original the TV stations used to broadcast the show has long since perished, unfortunately, because that was a discovery we made in 2002, I think, when I was originally looking to save this document, this historical documentary. So the only copy known to exist is a relatively decent TV recording, and I've been experimenting lately with upscaling that and having AI winkle out the details, and I'm astonished at the results. It's a bit what we might call uncanny valley. It looks a little bit not quite natural, but it's a far cry from the fuzzy original file I have. So my question, my request, my wondering is if listeners in Australia, if your parents or grandparents or whatever the case may be, have old collections of videotapes, who knows? Who knows? Somewhere, someone may have recorded the show in 1980 or 1981 when it was on repeat and have it somewhere kicking about a collection, and possibly in a better quality than the only one that we know exists. Now, it is on YouTube. You can watch it. The quality's not bad. It's watchable. James Randi in Australia. There are a couple of versions out there, one better than the other. The version from Australian Skeptics is the best one, and that's an upload from me because I've got the best remaining copy. But I wonder, the other one I'm trying to find is 30 years ago there was a very good show in Australia called The Money or the Gun. And this was a comedic show with very serious points to it. And they had a whole episode on the New Age. And that's one that would be very good to get. The New Age 30 years ago, covering all sorts of topics. Anyway, if you have time, maybe you know somebody who might have these things in their collection. If you do, drop me a note at Facebook, at the Facebook site for the Skeptic Zone, or you can drop an email to editor at skeptics.com.au, the easiest email for the Australian skeptics. Having said all that, on next week's show, we have the conclusion of the Book of Tim and his look into the life and times of Alfred Russel Wallace. And apart from anything else, we have part 2, or the continuing look into the claims of Dorothy Allison, the so-called psychic detective, and James Randi. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for episodes and show notes with links going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone on Facebook, X, TikTok and YouTube by clicking the links at our homepage, together with links to support the show financially via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of the Skeptic Zone podcast or any other skeptical organisation.
This is Kat McLeod at the Week in Reason Conference in Calgary, Alberta. I'm here with Marla McLeod, some relation. So Marla, how are you liking the conference so far?
I like it. Is your test done?
Well, this won't be used on the Skeptic Zone now, will it?
I hope not.
So say hi to Richard.
Hi, Richard. My hands are sweating.
She's the shy one in the family, folks.
Hello, all you people who listen after the music. Let's do it. Let's play the dice game. This is where I roll a d10 3 or 4 times. Who am I kidding? It's always 4 times. And you use your psychic magic powers, which means you guess what number's going to come up. Here we go. Roll number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to predict ahead of time. I'm going to predict for roll 1. I'm going to predict 2. Let's see what it is. Oh, it's a 9. Oh well. Roll number 2. I'm going to predict another 2. Here it comes. 7. Okay. Roll number 3 coming up. Make your predictions now. I'm going to predict 2. Here we go. 8. And roll number 4, I'm going to predict 5, which will always be known in skeptical circles as the Susan Gerbeck number. Here we go. It's a 10. Some days, your psychic power is just below par. Today's winning numbers: 9, 7, 8, and 10. So I rolled a 7, 8, 9, 10 in another order. Spooky.